made allegations or has given evidence that implicates you, you must, in your application to me,
we contend that Ms. Brown is not the be-all and end of. Please bear the following about what makes her unique. In line with her, it simply says, some of the terms of references, if you look at what is mentioned in a statement, some of the terms of reference refer. Some of the terms of reference mentions the SOEs that were under my auspices as a minister. In which to persuade you, Chair, that you should examine Mr. Mcebisi Jonas to explain that important term of reference which was a part of this session. Words not mentioned in her statement, Chairperson, about her version do not dilute that aspect. Already, Chairperson, context has already brought her before this commission. Now, we wanted to demonstrate to you that we may have not mentioned the following in her statement. She will deny that what Mr. Jonas said about Mr. Gupta is not true. We don't mention that, demonstrate that it cannot that she worked with the Guptas. Even in our earlier submissions, that Chair, look at her holistically. She's standing before you, Chair, if you look at all the terms of reference.
I'm going to give you 2 minutes to round off your submissions.
Chairperson, these 2 minutes I would like to address you with the difficulties that we face because of this. And this may come out at a later stage when we have to make closing submissions. And please, Chairperson, appreciate this submission in this context. Mr. Jonas is not only the witness of the evidence leaders, he's also our witness. We wanted to assist this commission by cross-examining him. And permit me just to read these following principles.
What would be very helpful is for her to give us her version. That is what would be helpful if she wants to assist us.
Chairperson, let me take you into our confidence openly. Ms. Brown's functions are set out in Section 85 of the Constitution. To initiate legislation, to direct policy, to guide executive functions. If it is said...
Yes, Mr. Lebala, but how is that relevant here?
Here's the relevancy, Chairperson. If someone says that the Guptas mentioned that they work with her, and it becomes a free-floating statement, no context given to it, nowhere is it said that the following is mentioned. The Guptas work with her when she discharges her executive functions. The Guptas work with her when she initiates legislation. The Guptas worked with her when she gave directions to the SOEs. Now that
she may be able to give that if she says, I want to be given a chance to give evidence and deal with this.
That's on record, Chairperson.
Yeah.
But here comes the difficulty, Chairperson. And I wanted to take you through there. Here is the real difficulty that the Commission is going to face. If a party, Chairperson, wishes to lead evidence to contradict, let's say Ms. Brown comes before the Commission. Here's the difficulty.
You are left with 1 minute.
May I just exhaust this 1 minute, Chairperson, by referring you to this authority. If a party wishes to lead evidence to contradict an opposing witnesses, take the position of Ms. Brown, he or she should first cross-examine the witness upon the facts which he or she intends to prove in contradiction. Take away the fact that she may not have specified her version in affidavit. Take away the fact that she does not say, I deny. But we wanted to demonstrate to you that by reflection, This is what she says, given the terms of reference. But may I conclude by referring you to this authority, Chairperson, which is in our submission. It is grossly unfair to let a witness evidence go unchallenged in cross-examination and afterwards argue that he must be disbelieved. Now, this is going to happen if, and we are forced to give you if, Chairperson, if Ms. Brown comes before this commission and she wants to cross-examine or she wants to give her version, and in that version she says that which you say she ought to have put in her statement to apply to cross-examine Mr. Jonas. This is what might happen, Chairperson. And these are the basic principles of cross-examination, the leading of evidence. Now, in closing, Chairperson, that's where our difficulty is. All that we wanted to say to you, Chairperson, is if you had appreciated the context, appreciating the
Free to later on renew the application if she meets the requirements. She's able to meet the requirements. So the final decision is her application at this stage is dismissed. Obviously, I didn't need to hear Mr. Mokwena. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Pretorius?
Thank you, Chair. It was envisaged yesterday that we would put before you the program for the next few weeks
Yes.
and give some explanation of why we are in the position that we are today.
Yes.
There are no hearings planned for tomorrow, so we will not be sitting by your leave tomorrow, Chair. The Commission will be requested by the legal team to hear an application. We don't deem it appropriate to give details at this stage on Thursday the 27th and Friday the 28th of September. Minister Nene will testify on the 3rd of October, Minister Gordon on the 10th of October, and Barbara Hogan on the 15th of October, by your leave. The difficulty that the legal team has had in planning for witnesses to testify this week and next week is that both Mrs. Jonas and Ms. Mentor are out of the country. And that has given some difficulties in programming in relation to their availability, but as soon as their availability has been secured, they will give evidence on intervening days, but we cannot determine those days at this stage. Mr. Chair, Phase 1 that was mentioned in the opening statement is nearing completion, but certain matters relevant to Phase 1 and the terms of reference included in Phase 1 have been held over pending further investigations and cooperation with the investigators. Dependent upon their work and their assistance to the legal team, we will call further evidence in Phase 1, but we're unable to determine fixed dates at this stage, and it's perhaps not appropriate at this stage to name witnesses. In relation to term of reference 1.8, Chair, you will recall that is the term of reference that deals with the appointment of advisors in the Ministry of Treasury in relation to the appointment in December 2015 of Minister Des van Rooyen. That matter is almost ready. Certain investigations need completion, statements are ready, and the relevant witnesses will be called in the concluding parts of Phase 1. Certain other witnesses, Chair, have expressed a willingness to testify sooner rather than later, and again, those with the assistance of the investigators and the legal team, statements will be prepared and put before you, also in the latter stages of Phase 1. So there's a lot of work still to be done before we move to Phase 2. Phase 2, Chair, as you will understand, involves intensive work on the part of the investigation team, assisted by the legal team, and as soon as we have clarity on the products of that investigation, which at this stage we don't have, we will put forward a further program for phase 2 beginning later in the year.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Pretorius. Just to confirm then, the commission will not be sitting tomorrow, and next week it will only resume sitting on Thursday, and on Thursday it will hear a certain application, details of which it is not considered appropriate to disclose to the public at this stage, and that might take Thursday and Friday next week, and the Minister Nene, Minister of Finance, will give his evidence on the 3rd of October.
Correct, DCJ.
And Minister Gordon will give his evidence on the 10th of October. And former Minister Barbara O'Hogan will give her evidence
on the 15th.
On the 15th of October. And in the meantime, in between, there might be other witnesses that you might bring in. I understand the position relating to phase 1, either in between or much later. Yeah.
And in the intervening dates, perhaps on short notice,
yes,
there may be other witnesses who become available,
yes,
given international travels and other considerations.
Yeah, and that includes issues of cross-examination, or not really?
Well, in relation,
Mr. Jonas would give his evidence and then would be finalized and then be available for cross-examination.
Yes, similarly Ms. Mentor, and then arrangements will be made with the legal teams involved.
Yes, and so far, other than applicants whose application for leave to cross-examine have been refused, no one has applied for leave to cross-examine Mr. Masego.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, well, yes, no one has applied.
Yeah, okay, all right. No, thank you very much. We will then stop at this stage. The proceedings are therefore adjourned until Thursday next week. We adjourn.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay.
Oh, do you just have the game face on?
Dance without trying to do a popular might do that. Then you can try. If you can do that without Matida bar, I respect you to stay your like early. That's the when you've only been early or on time once.
I'd say at least 25% of the time you're on time.
No, I think it's almost 2 years. And only once. Once.
Tommy, how do you deal with this thing? Ayaka. No, your name is Kakala, no? Kakala. What's hectic? My dance moves. I know all about it.
Let's stick to the language lessons for now. Right? Let's do the language thing first.
Joburg, how's about we do a crossing, eh?
Like two of the mothers who's the 4 kids that are being buried who died in the shelter. Two of the mothers aren't attending because they're scared the community will like go out.
But well done. What the hell are you doing? What the hell are you doing drinking while your kids are being burnt to death?
How can you?
So bad.
But we all know
No.
this. No, don't act surprised. We all know this happens. We all know this happens.
How long ago was it where that kid got its face eaten by rats?
Yes. I think it was in
Same,
Alex
same shit.
also, yeah.
Same thing.
Wasn't the
Going
mother wasn't there.
to.
We all know this. There's hundreds of them. These single mothers, young ones, that are still wanna
But they're still learning and they still want to go and
they wanna
make.
go and party.
Why
And then,
couldn't they like leave the kids with Gran or if you say Gran
Because maybe Granny also told them like grow the fuck up and look after your kids.
and then they lock them in.
Gran can only look after two. Once you start bringing number 3 and 4, Gran is like. Shaq can only accommodate two.
Can we maybe find out what's happening?
I'm so over this woman, like you don't understand.
Who's this?
Elvis.
Who's Elvis?
Elvis.
First of all, Faith, now is Elvis.
Tiriza. Yes, not but Tiriza. South Spanish. Yeah.
Everywhere. Everywhere.
Just get it together.
Like she's just She's not picking up. She ain't in love. She ain't in love. What are they for? Hello? Hi, Isabel. What time are you guys coming to us? At 11. At 2 past.
Ini?
Oh, okay. 5 past. Kukubalik mo na lang daw.
Mayamanga man.
Thank you. Kanti what's ang Elvis Moe?
Hello.
Lamo ba na pa?
Yeah, good. And how are you? Good. Thank you. I appreciate it. Well, that depends. Who's asking?
Great.
Yes, I can hear you, Ngambi. I said, when you asked me how I am, I said, who's asking?
They are on a break.
It wasn't me. Yeah. Is that your favorite? Is that your favorite song when you're rolling with Mrs. Ngambi? It wasn't me. Right now, not at 5 past. Okay, well, I'm looking forward to it, bro. Tommy, switch off your camera mic. You know, in Gambia, I mean, it's so tough to get decent help nowadays. Huh?
That's all. That's all.
Tum. Black sugar.
And he has no sugar on the icon. So you're right off the headlines, though.
Well, it didn't take long for Deputy Chief Justice Raymond Zondo, the chairperson of this commission into state capture, to smack down the legal arguments that have been proffered by the legal representatives of Lynne Brown. Simi Labala was the advocate leading the charge for the former Public Enterprises Minister, and he was interrupted on several occasions by the Deputy Chief Justice Zondo, who essentially wanted to know Lynne Brown's side of the story. Essentially, when you apply for leave to cross-examine at at a commission of inquiry and a general principle in law, you need to provide your version of events in order for the presiding legal officer to decide whether or not there is a case to be made for the person that originally made the allegation to be cross-examined by you or your legal representatives. So Deputy Chief Justice Zondo dismissing that, I would even go so far as to say with a slight bit of contempt, as he continuously interrupted Simi Labala during his testimony to say, when am I going to hear what Lynne Brown has for her side of the story? As such, Lynne Brown heading to this inquiry, as you quite rightly point out, on the basis that Mthembisi Jonas mentioned her in passing during his testimony. She hasn't been directly implicated by a public official in state capture such as yet in Gambia. But we have to also look at how she ended up being Minister of Public Enterprises. If we cast our minds back to 2009, she was in the political wilderness after the DA won the Western Cape. She was no longer Western Cape Premier. She was in that position for a while. And then in 2014, rather puzzlingly, at least to my mind, and I remember you and I discussed it at length during the time, President Zuma plucking her from relative political obscurity to head up the post of public enterprises. And that's when the stories and reports started emerging of wholesale looting of state-owned enterprises, with Lynne Brown at the center of media allegations that she was part and parcel of those moves to siphon off funds through dodgy deals at public enterprises in Gambia. Well, we've knocked off for this week. There's nothing happening at the Commission of Inquiry tomorrow. It's also a public holiday on Monday. It will get underway again next week, Thursday, but that's sorting out further scheduling plans and also leading evidence that has been proffered on paper. But the heavy hitters that are coming in the days and the weeks to come, the 3rd of October, we're going to see Finance Minister Nhlanhla Nene. He's going to be testifying before the Commission. Just a week later, we're going to see former Finance Minister, now Public Enterprises Minister, Pravin Gordhan, also appearing. And then on the 15th, we're going to see Barbara Hogan, the former Minister of Public Enterprises, also give her side of the story. That is going to be surely some very explosive testimony when they take to the lectern here, just behind me, at the State Capture Commission, which is being headed up by Deputy Chief Justice Raymond Zondo. Rather terse in his handling of and underlining the importance of anybody that is implicated needing to give their side of the story if they hope to take part in cross-examination or even take part in the commission per se itself. He has to date already granted leave to appeal, or rather leave to cross-examine to former President Jacob Zuma's son Dudu Zane, and as such we'll have to see whether or not any of these applications for leave for cross-examination will come before this commission and again be approved by the Deputy Chief Justice himself. But for the moment, all quiet on the state capture front in Gambia.
Cool, thanks. Yay. And we are done.
Let's
Hooray,
just
too
ask
fun,
them for one more.
For one more what? Why would you do that?
I just like the synergy.
If they want to cause